one of the things that ChatGPT excels at as far as code-related prompting is generating standalone discrete scripts, functions, classes, things that exist on their own. And one of the most common use cases that in my own daily developer life I turn to ChatGPT for is writing simple shell scripts or even just a shell one-liner. I have I've published courses on Unix commands, where I cover like 50 or 60 different commands and how to combine them, how to write your own shell scripts. But it takes time, and I only remember like half of them on my best days without having to research some of the different commands. So by using ChatGPT, I can really quickly create utility scripts and just one-liners that are useful, that don't require 5, 10, 15 minutes of digging around and playing, but instead just a single query to ChatGPT. So a really simple one to start would be on a Mac. Everyone on a Mac gets these pesky hidden DS store files, these system files. So here's a directory. I have one there. I didn't make it. My Mac just adds it in there. Let's see, I think there's at least, here's another one nested in my routes directory in this folder. Let's take a look at the views directory. Okay, there's not one here. How about in my models directory? Yep, there's a DS store file. And these are just annoying. I mean, you can add them to a git ignore and that makes it easy enough. However, if I want to just remove them all, so that they're not cluttering my workspace or not showing up in my videos, I could write a script to do that. And it's probably going to involve RM and possibly find, but I could also ask ChatGPT to do it for me or write a script for me. Write a command line script, can I zoom in a bit, to remove all DS store, there's a dot in front of it, files from my Mac within a given directory and all nested folders. Let's imagine there's 5 or 6 layers of these folders and they all have a DS store. Yep, so it is, I see, yep, see, this is what I'm talking about. I forgot there's a delete option for the find command. And I've taught the find command. I've made videos, many videos on it, but there's just too much to remember. So before you use something like this, it's always good to understand what it's doing and if it looks good to you or not. There are many times ChatGPT will come up with something completely wrong. I'll show you a cautionary tale shortly in the next video or two. Okay, so I just ran the command, although I did run it in the wrong directory. I was nested down one layer, so let me try it again. Okay, so now there's no DS store file in here. And if I look in the, where else was one? The routes folder, there's no DS store here. And presumably, however many nested layers of DS stores I have all the way down 10, 20 folder levels down, if I had that, they'd all be removed. So here's another example straight from the real world. Something that happens a lot when I'm making a course is that I'm not sure how long the course is as I'm creating it. I'll export a bunch of videos. So here's one example actually for this very course you're watching right now. These are the exports for one of the sections on ChatGPT, basic sort of prompting, blueprint, right? Things we talked about, providing the context, input data, output format. Anyway, I have all the MP4s, and I just want to have a rough idea, or I guess a precise idea of how long this section is, because it's kind of a pain to upload my videos to Udemy, where it will actually start, telling me how long the course is. So what I'd like to do is have a script to start, at least, that will just take one directory of videos and tell me how long all these videos are. And then ideally, I could run it on the overall course directory that has a bunch of nested course folders. And then it could tell me up to date right now, every time I run it, just a little command line script, you are at 8 hours or 7 hours or 20 hours, because that makes a big difference on how I approach a course. If things are getting way too big too quickly, which has happened, I end up having to re-record things, slim it down so that I'm not making like a 30-hour course or a 40-hour course. Anyway, I'm just going to ask ChatGPT to help me with that. Can you write me a simple shell script that will, let's go with sum the durations of all videos within a specific directory. And I think I want to avoid doing any standalone shell scripts here. Instead, I'm just going to ask it to make me a one-liner. But realistically, I would put this in a file, make it an executable, and be able to run it, with some sort of name that I give it, like, I don't know, calculate length, current length, something like that, curlen. Okay, so it is giving me a bash script, which is fine. But then I'm going to ask it, can you instead make that a one-liner? And this is, again, this iterative process that we'll talk more about, where it's a conversation going back and forth with ChatGPT to arrive at the actual end result that behaves the way I want it to. So here's what it's given me. It's using the find command. It's using something called ffprobe. It's then looking for the duration. And then it's using the paste command, which doesn't really work well on a Mac. So I'll just run this. I will have to replace this path to directory with the current directory, just dot, because I'm already in that folder. And actually it looked like it worked okay this time. Interesting. That's good to know. I was having trouble with the paste command a couple days ago. But it does look like I can only assume this is a duration in seconds. There's no way that these, 8 videos are 2,000 minutes. So then I could ask it, can you rewrite it to give me the duration in minutes? Now, it's just going to divide by 60. It would be simple enough to add that on ourselves. But again, we're having a conversation with it and improving things as we go. Okay, so it adds in an echo, wraps everything, and then divides by 60 at the end. Let's try that. Replace the path to the directory with dot, which is the current folder. And it gives me 35 minutes. Okay, so I'll verify independently after this. Just do the math. I'll add them up together and tell you if that's correct. And indeed, it is correct. I just summed it up manually. The videos are slightly longer than 35 minutes total, but it's rounding down to 35, which is fine. But if we look at my folder structure here, it's kind of a mess. But this is a peek into the disaster of my course structure, organization, file structure, all that stuff. If I look at one of these, like the code interpreter section, it includes a bunch of screen flow files, which is the software I use to record the actual videos. Then I export them into a folder, in this case called interpreter exports. And then I have all my MP4 files. So what I wanted to do is work with all of the MP4 files it finds within this directory. And we can try running it as is. So I'll go to the parent directory of my entire course, which is this folder here called ChatGPT course. And I'm going to try running the command. Where are you? This one. And let's see if it does work, if it finds all of the videos. And it's unhappy because the way that it's doing find right now is that it's just taking every single file. So it's not going to work. I want it to only work with the MP4 files because this package or this tool, ffprobe, I believe works only with video files, but it's finding a bunch of weird files like a DS store file, a bunch of ScreenFlow files, right? All the files that I've made that are not videos. So I'm going to ask it again, can you rewrite it to specifically look for .mp4 files? And it's just going to change the find command. There we go. We use -name, use the wildcard character with .mp4. This will basically say find all the files nested in this directory that have .mp4 at the end of their name. And then I'll just change this to be dot because I'm running it in the current directory. Let's clear and let's see what happens. Just doing some recursive searching and finding, and hopefully there we are, 584 minutes, which at this point, when we get to this size, I may actually prefer it in terms of hours, which, what I would probably do is turn this into an actual shell script I could run with different options, one for M, minutes, one for H, hours. And this is accurate. This is saying I think that's 9.7 hours, 9.6 hours, which is exactly, I've actually uploaded most of the content to Udemy already, so I do know that it is 9 point something hours. Okay, so pretty nifty, just a simple example, but could I have written this? Sure. It would have taken, this is the easy part, finding the MP4s. Using this FF probe package or script, I've never used it, but it apparently will extract the duration of a video. That's one of the options. And then we sum them all together and divide by 60, and there we are, 584 minutes. This is the sort of thing that I think ChatGPT is really good at and can enhance pretty much any developer's workflow, not just shell scripting, but that's a common one where, you could be a Python master, a JavaScript master, a Java master, whatever, but shell scripting is its own thing that almost everyone has to worry about at some point. And for me, even though I've taught courses on it, it's still hard to remember most of the stuff, to be honest. And ChatGPT just made it very easy. I just had to go back and forth with it a couple times to improve the initial command it gave me. And finally, it probably would have been best just to go with a shell script from the beginning, put this in a script, make it an executable, give it some sort of name. That would have been nice. But I just wasn't sure if everyone was comfortable and familiar with doing that, so I just asked it to give me a one-liner instead. But then, of course, I have to remember this one-liner and copy and paste it every time, which is the whole point of creating our own executables. I can give them a name and run this as, calc duration, cur duration, something like that. Get minutes, get hours. Anyway,